Hello, hello. Good evening. Happy Tuesday and all of that good stuff. It would be really helpful if y'all would let me know if you can hear me okay. Um, Trying to work this out to make sure that I'm not having any technical difficulties, and it is hard to tell. So, um, this is my regular scheduled live, 6 p.m. Mexico City time, which is set now 7 p.m. Eastern because the US just came off of daylight savings time. We do not do daylight savings time here in Mexico. We stay on standard time. And I have spent the last 6 months trying to explain to people the difference between uh, daylight standard time and regular standard time. And so I'm glad y'all are back on the same time we are here in Mexico. So for those of you joining me tonight, thank you. Like I said, this is my time to normally go live. I noticed that it coincided with a big event that was happening today. And I'm gonna keep it real. I just didn't have the bandwidth. So I didn't have the bandwidth. And so I decided I didn't want to talk about that. So I see everybody here in the chat. Uh, is it Taurus and Hibiscus? Black Women Build Wealth, Jan, Jenna, Charles Zetta. Hey, y'all. So if there is something specific you want to talk about, drop it in the chat. And I am open to talking about most things. I guess I can give y'all a bit of a life update. Although, before I do that, I should probably introduce myself in case somebody was lost and ended up here in this live stream. It is like, what is this? What is going on? My name is Adelia Agorashade, aka Picky Girl Travels the World. This is my little corner of the internet where I talk about travel, I talk about living abroad, and I talk about money because I am a money coach, a financial educator, and I really believe that everybody should be able to make financially confident decisions. And so this channel and the work I do is a big piece of helping people do that. So if you're new here, welcome. Glad you could join us. If those sound like topics you're really into, subscribe. Let YouTube know that you want to see more of that kind of stuff in your feed. So, hold on, there's a setting. I forgot to flip in here. Okay. So, as I was saying, I guess I can give y'all a little bit of a life update. I started Spanish class 2 weeks ago, and it is exhausting me. It is literally like having a full-time job. This is an intensive Spanish class. It is probably the best program in the city. It is a program I did 7 years ago when I first moved to Mexico City. And I don't remember being this tired and this worn out back then. So I don't know if it's being 7 years older or if when I initially came to Mexico back in 2017, I was on sabbatical. I was on my grown up gap year. So like going to school, that was the most work I did. And then after that, I didn't do anything. And now I'm trying to like run a business and do that kind of stuff. After I get out of class, it's a lot. It's a lot. Hopefully, is my hope to be fluent when this is all said and done? Mm, Not necessarily. I don't think fluent is in the cards for me. Um, I don't think it's in the cards for me. And to me, I define fluent as being able to speak in Spanish the way I can in English, and I don't see that happening. Um, will my Spanish be functional? Sure, my Spanish is functional now. I think it'll be a little better. I'll have a bit more practice. Uh, I'll review, pretérito and imperfecto. Like those things have been in my brain, but I've not been using them. So it'll be good for me. It's making me speak to strangers, which is not one of my favorite things. So yeah, um, our Black Utopia. Okay. I like the fact that Portugal, the government sponsors classes so that you can meet the language requirement for, I believe it's citizenship. The Mexican government has not done that. My class is 5 days a week, 3 hours a day, plus there should be another 2 days for 1.5 hours of sort of like an enrichment class, like pronunciation, comprehension, something like that. I told them I was too grown to take that class. And then there's also another 2 day, 1.5 hour each day cultural class. I did opt to take the cultural class because uh, one that was available that I wanted was salsa. And so, if you've been on this channel a while, you know that I've attempted to take salsa classes a couple of times. I shouldn't say attempted. I actually did take salsa classes. Um, this is a little different. My teacher was like, "We're gonna learn Mexican salsa." I didn't know that even existed, and it's been interesting. Um, Nicole, I'm in Spanish classes. Would love to hear how your Spanish intensive course goes. I may do one in Mexico or Guatemala this summer. The program that I am doing is at the university, the big national university that is headquartered here. Like I said, it is probably the best program in the city. What it doesn't have, that to my knowledge, is like the homestay component, which a lot of people have said has been very, very beneficial in their language learning journey. Uh, but because of who I am and being the picky girl, the picky eater that I am, I have no interest in doing a homestay. I do not want to make anybody have to figure out how to feed me. Back in January, when I was in Oaxaca for the artist residence, there was a lady who she kept the house, she cleaned the house, and she fed us. Um, and she picked up very quickly that there were some things I didn't eat, but she never asked. And so, like I did, I didn't tell her like, girl, don't put yourself out trying to feed me. And she had her plan, she had her menu. And there were some days I'd come back from my class and there's food on the table for everybody but me. Cause it was something that she knew I wasn't gonna eat. I was like, okay, fine. So in this program, there is no homestay piece, which I know a lot of people go to Guatemala and get that. But because this program is housed at the university, there are a lot of like university events and crossovers that give you a chance to speak to native speakers and interact with them socially. So I like it, but I'll let y'all know if there is any market difference um, between how I was when I started and when I finished. And again, y'all, I know y'all didn't just come to hear me run my mouth. So If there are specific topics that you would like to discuss, drop them in the chat. Um, how soon did you realize you wanted to move abroad after teaching, and how long did it take you to get the money thing figured out? I think I figured out the money thing before I went abroad. I've kind of refined it a little bit since I've been abroad. If you're new here, I left the United States in 2016, in July of 2016. And I always knew that I wanted to go abroad. I wanted to go abroad since I was a teenager. I just couldn't figure out how to make it work. And I see Stephanie Perry is in the chat at her and Rashida Dow's event, Exodus Summit. Was it last year, year before? They were talking about like possibility models and the whole idea even of Exodus Summit, that when you see somebody else doing the thing that you want to do, then it becomes possible for you to do it. I didn't have any possibility models as a young kid growing up in South Park, talking about she wanted to live in another country. So I couldn't figure out how to make it work. This is pre-internet, so I couldn't just Google it. But it was always something in the back of my mind. And throughout my career, I would come across people who were doing things internationally, and I'd express that, like, oh, that's something I want to do. And it wasn't until, I don't know, maybe like a couple of years, I know what it was. It was 2010 when I was teaching junior high school, of all places, a place I had no business being. One of the ladies I taught with, her husband got a job in Saudi Arabia, and she ended up getting a job at the Saudi Aramco school. And so I had like personal interaction with somebody who's going to be teaching at an international school. And that's kind of when I finally figured out how I could make it work while I was still relatively young. If nothing else, I probably would have ended up like retiring abroad when I was older, but being around that woman and asking questions, that kind of cracked the door open for me. And then I started Googling things and finding out, oh, you can teach abroad. And so because I was a certified teacher, I used that as my springboard to get abroad. And as like I said, as far as the money thing goes, I figured a lot of that out beforehand because I had to, because I was a teacher not making a lot of money and still trying to live a somewhat enjoyable life. So I had to figure that out. There is a video on my channel. If I didn't answer your question, if it's something more specific about like financial independence, rest and ease, or retire early, if it's something more specific about that, there is a video on my channel about FIRE for regular people, where I talk about in a lot of detail my path, how I got to be to the point that at 45, I decided I didn't want to teach anymore, and that having a job was getting in the way of the life I wanted to live. So if that's what you're interested in, find that video on my channel, FIRE for regular people. Because I know we often think about, oh, if you're going to retire early or you're going to travel the world, you're going to do whatever, you got to have a lot of money. No, that's not true. You don't. You don't. Let's see. I see some questions in here, and feel free to drop your questions in the chat. Are you going to give us some Spanish conversation tonight so we can hear your before and then your after? Por favor, chica. Here's the thing. I do conversation in Spanish just like I do in English. I don't do the talking. somebody else asks the question and I answer it. That's the main reason I'm probably doing classes in person where I have to physically go there every day because it makes me talk to people. If it was my choice, I would not talk to in Spanish or in English. And in order to learn to really master a foreign language, you got to talk. I had a private teacher previously, and I had a bit of a theory about like, oh, I bet you introverts learn differently than extroverts. And she was like, oh, absolutely. Extroverts, they just speak. They don't worry about the grammar. They don't worry about the spelling. They just say what they say. And when you try and correct them, they're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And she's like, in introverts, they want to say it perfect. They want to have it all together before it comes out of their mouth. And I was like, yep, exactly. And because I don't have it perfect, I don't really want to talk to nobody. So I don't know. I don't know that there have been several times that I've made like day in the life videos that I interact with people here in Mexico, but it never, that part of the audio never seems to make it in. Let's see. If you don't mind answering, do you still have a residence in the US or are you gone from the US? Thank you for asking this, Lori. Because they're really, unless you want your life to be really, really difficult, there is no way to be gone from the US without, uh, what is it called? Renouncing your citizenship. I did a video called 10 Money Moves to Make Before You Move Abroad. And I'm sure I've done another one since then. But because US citizens and green card holders have to file taxes no matter where they are in the world, your life is so much easier if you maintain a US address, if you keep a US phone number. Imagine trying to bank uh, in the US without having a phone number, an American phone number, because let me tell you, they're not gonna call my Mexican number. So none of us, unless we are renouncing our citizenship, really get to be gone. But if you mean like in terms of, do I have like, did I keep a house or an apartment someplace that I can go stay when I go back? No. Um, I don't have a car in the US. When I come to the US, it is like I am visiting family in another state. I gotta rent a car. If I'm not staying with my cousin, I gotta get a hotel. But so like physically, I don't have, none of my stuff is in the US. I don't have storage, anything like that. The only physical stuff I still have in the States is a box of photos that is in my cousin's closet. And there is a box of dishes that my youngest asked me to keep for her. But I don't have any physical stuff. But I do have, like ties in the sense of like I voted last week, but because I got a life here, I flew in the morning, voted, grabbed something to eat, picked up my mail, and flew back. So I don't have any like any physical things connecting me to the US. And I see Stephanie asked the same question. No, when I left in 2017, it was completely my intention to never come back. So I got rid of things like that. I didn't own anything that was worth paying for storage over. Like all of the like sentimental things, I gave those to the people who would eventually get them when I died. So I have, like I said, I have two small tubs, and one of them is just full of pictures, and that's it. I don't have any physical stuff there. Okay. And like I said, having storage, I didn't own anything. I'm a minimalist. I didn't own anything I thought was worth storing. I didn't want to pay for storage, and it was my intention to never come back. I know that a lot of people will hold on to things because they're like, hey, I don't know if I'm going to be gone forever. But that was my plan. Okay. Let's see what other questions do we have in here. Okay. What do you use for your address for things like bank accounts and voting? I have used a relative's address. I have used a like mailbox service where it looked like a regular street address, but it was really a box, and it wasn't a P.O. box. I don't think a P.O. box would work well because who's going to check the P.O. box? But the people at the mail forwarding service would get my mail, they would scan it, I'd get an email, and then I could tell them, trash it, send it, forward it on or do whatever. So I've done both. Okay. Can y'all hear me now? Oh, so yeah. Can y'all hear me now? No volume? Still? Still no volume? Nice enough. That's yes, you can hear me? Okay. All right. So I'm back. Sorry about that. I was using my phone and I thought I put it on do not disturb, but apparently somebody was disturbing me. Okay. So that I hope answers the question about mail. I have used a mail forwarding service, and I have also used a relative's address. Even if technically, if you don't have an address, let's say you just went against my advice and you completely severed ties and you didn't have an address, you still are a resident of the last place you were a resident of. You don't get to not be. So it just not having an address will make getting a license and a bank account and all that kind of stuff more difficult. Let's see. I'm in my late 20s and I've been planning to travel. I filed as 1099 and contribute to my own IRA, but I came across your videos on brokerage accounts. Which one would you prioritize? Oh, okay. So in essence, you are asking if you're investing for the future, should you prioritize the Roth IRA where the money can grow tax-free forever, or would you put money in the brokerage account, which is a taxable brokerage account? Here's the thing. How long are you going to be traveling? Because if you're going to be outside of the US for 330 days, so let's say you're just going to be walking around and you're barely going to be in the US at all, you could exempt your income, not have to pay US federal income taxes. But that would mean you can't contribute to your Roth IRA because you must have earned income in order to contribute. And so if that was the case, you would definitely do the brokerage account. If that's not the case, if it's not that you're going to be traveling outside the US for 330 days or more, and you're kind of going to be in and out, my then question would be, what are you plan to use the money for? How soon might you want to touch that money? Because the brokerage account is going to have fewer strings attached about using that money and spending it on what you want, being able to touch it at any age you want. So yeah, that would be some of the things I consider there. Okay, let's see. Have you ever done a video with your adult children? No. My oldest child has no interest. She thinks what I do is great, but she wants no part of it. My younger kid thinks I'm lame. She's like, oh, that is so cheesy, you on the internet. So neither of them have interest. The grandkids might one day, but my children, uh, they're just not interested. They're like, you go over there and do your thing. Don't bring us into it. I would say the oldest one, she has used the words like, I'm proud of you. The youngest one, it's more like, you are embarrassing. And people don't even know I'm her mother, and she finds it embarrassing. So that's what that is. Are you a natural saver? Or did you learn budgeting, saving, and investing? I learned investing. I tried to learn budgeting, but it doesn't really fit with who I am as a person. And if you're wondering, like, well, how the hell do you not budget? There is a video on my channel about that. About like I think it says something like, you don't need a budget. I know I have grades in the thumbnail. I don't know if I'm a natural saver, but I do lean that way. I would say that at least for a big part of my life, I could delay gratification, particularly if I had a goal or a plan. I could delay gratification. I could see the big picture. I didn't get caught up in so much like, oh, I got to have this thing now. My business partner and my roommate informed me the other day that I am not that person anymore, that saving is not something I prioritize. And she's not wrong, but so I don't know if that makes me a natural saver or not. But I think if you are saving, being able to, you know, step away from immediate gratification definitely helps. I'm rewatching your travel and healthcare videos. Any new insight for folks, Bob? Would you still recommend World Nomad for travel? For travel insurance that covers like emergency evacuation and that kind of thing, I like World Nomad because it has been the only company I found that will issue me travel insurance and I'm not living in the US. I didn't think trip insurance, travel insurance was specifically an American thing, but I have yet to find an equivalent here in Mexico. What I notice a lot here is if you book a tour with somebody, they will include insurance. Like when we bought bus tickets from Mexico City to Oaxaca City, I could add insurance for like 50 cents, 10 pesos or something like that. But I couldn't, I have searched, and if anybody's got a suggestion, please drop it here in the chat. I couldn't find anybody in Mexico that just sold that kind of insurance. Although, now that I think about it, because I am in the midst of getting health insurance quotes, because I figure my rates might be a little better while I'm still in my 40s before I hit my big fives. Um, and one broker I have looked at, hold on, let me see if I can grab it. Mm, I just remember there were some letters in the name. I can't remember what it actually is. Okay. Dee, I will get you that information. They are, I think some of the people they work with are global, some of them are Mexico specific. But for like travel insurance, they're still my go-to. I know some people are like, just use a US address. Like I have one, I can use it. But here's the thing, if something goes wrong and they need to like medically evacuate me or whatever, they're gonna send me to the US for treatment because that's where I said I lived when I took out the policy. I can't afford to be sick in the United States. So I don't want that. I want to be evacuated to Mexico or someplace similar. Um, so I hope that helps. And um, if I can find that name of the agent that I'm looking at, that I'm getting some quotes from, I'll send that to you. All right. Okay. Wait. What do you do for the Thanksgiving holiday? Absolutely nothing. Uh, I don't cook ever if I can help it. I did used to be responsible for feeding other humans, but it seems as though all of that information I had has left my brain. So no, here in Mexico City, you can get turkeys. Now, people get very excited when they're looking for like canned pumpkin and cranberries, because that apparently is not something that is always available. But you can get a turkey here easy. I was at Wild Fork the other day and they had turkeys. But no, I do not cook. I I rarely even think about the fact that it is Thanksgiving. I'm trying to think, in all the years that I have been outside the US, have I ever celebrated or recognized Thanksgiving? I don't think so. I mean, I take that back. I went to Cuba a couple years ago because it was Thanksgiving. That's when the trip was kind of built around people having time off at Thanksgiving. That's about the only time. And we did not have Thanksgiving dinner in Cuba. Um, what is an unconventional reason someone should consider moving abroad that's not often talked about? Huh. An unconventional reason? I think, I mean, I think a lot of reasons can be unconventional. I don't know. I mean, I think the reasons you leave the US or whatever country, they're your own. Um, I mean, the thing that just popped in my head was like, oh, you could get bariatric surgery for cheap. I guess that would be unconventional. Now, why did that pop in my head? I don't know. I don't know. I have to think on that. I don't have a ready answer for that one. Um, um, let's see. What do you mean? I went live on Thanksgiving Day. You sure that was Thanksgiving? That does not sound like me. That does not sound like me at all. Not at all. Okay. Now, nice enough. I am no expert on this, okay? Here's a question that no one touches. I am on SSDI and LTD. I assume that's Social Security disability and long-term disability. I'm not sure what SSDI is. The long-term disability ends when I turn 65. How realistic is it for someone to move abroad when you cannot earn extra dollars due to the stipulations on us? I, okay, if that is Social Security disability, technically you can only be out of the US for 6 months. So I think it's two parts to that. You can move or you can split your time between the US and somewhere else, but it would have to be a place where your monthly cost of living would be less than your benefit, or you would have to explore some kind of co-living. I think it's possible. I don't think it is impossible, but it's not going to be the easiest thing to figure out. And I think you might have to be open to, I think the biggest thing, because the largest expense you're going to have is housing. So if you can find a way to bring that down, and the easiest way to do that is to live with other people. The bigger concern for me is the amount of time that you can be out of the US and not lose your disability. Now, if SSDI is regular Social Security, that's not an issue. You can be on that and be outside the US. That's not a big deal. I'm not as well versed in Social Security because I haven't had to be just yet. So keep that in mind. Let's see. Answered that. Is the cost of living still going up like the US? I'm at the point that I don't like spending money for anything. Everything is so expensive. Things are more expensive here. Are prices going up at the same rate as they are in the US? I don't think so, but they are still more expensive. I would say previously it was very doable to go out and have a meal and it be like 100 pesos. I could eat for 125 pesos, which is like $5, $6. Now it's very hard for me to eat somewhere for less than 200 pesos, so like $10. So it doesn't sound like a lot, but that to me, it's like things have almost doubled. The I guess the one saving grace is right now the exchange rate between the peso and the dollar are back in a place that is more favorable for people who have dollars. So that part is nice, but everything is being more expensive everywhere, and we got to tax the rich. Because right now corporate greed and profiteering is what's driving up all these prices, and it's not, wages aren't going with it. Okay. um ba, 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 ba. Any recommendations on items people may want to bring with them when relocating to Mexico? Are there things you wish you had bought with you when you originally made the move to Mexico? Um, Not really. I moved to Mexico initially coming from Honduras. And so because I did that move myself, the boxes, I had a couple of boxes that my employer had shipped from Texas to Honduras for me. I was not bringing those things with me to Mexico because I wasn't going to pay for it. And I will say this, every time, it used to be, every time I go back to the States, I have this long list of things I had to bring back with me. That list is virtually non-existent, with the exception of a particular brand of toothpaste that I cannot get here. And, you know, I always find something at Trader Joe's to bring back. But when I think about the things that I own, like I have a Ninja blender. I could have gotten that here, but I bought it in the US because it was less than half the price of what it would cost me. So, um, so like, yeah, I'm glad I did that because I didn't want to pay what it would have cost here. But there is very little that I look back and I think, oh, I should have brought that. Initially, I did not bring sheets with me because I don't know why I didn't think about that. I didn't think about, because I was initially living in fully furnished apartments, and I guess I was just like, I'll buy sheets wherever. Not all sheets are created equal. So, and these are pretty standard answers. I think you get most people when you ask them about moving to Mexico. I had some really nice Egyptian cotton sheets that I have not been able to pry out of my cousin's hands because I gave them to her because I was like, oh, I don't know what size bed I'll have, blah, blah, blah. I wish I had those sheets. But there isn't really, I can't think of anything. It's a very, very small, like handful, like less than 5 things that I need to get from the US on a regular or semi-regular basis. For the most part, I get what I want here. It is probably going to cost me more, or like with fabric. I don't even fabric shop in the US, because the main place I buy fabric from is in Canada. But she will ship, if I buy enough, she'll ship to the US for free. I have had her send things here, and it's not cheap, but it's cheaper than a flight to the US. So, it all depends. Um, I will say this, if you are anticipating furnishing an apartment and you like lamps, lamps are so expensive here. They cost like $1 million. So if there's a lamp you love, you might want to bring that with you. Uh, Kitchen appliances, like things like like a really good blender. There are plenty of cheap blenders here, but I used to make my own peanut butter. I still do from time to time. And so I needed a very strong blender. And that cost me significantly more here. So I made a point to bring that with me. How does one adjust to long flights? Any tips or tricks? I don't care how old or how young you are, you need to be wearing, what are those things called? The socks. What are the socks called? Um, because I know in my 40s, my feet started to swell every time I flew. What are those? The word is not coming to my brain. I want to say compression socks. Thank you, KB. Because I was like, therapeutic socks? That don't sound right. Compression socks. I don't care if you're 25, wear the compression socks. My other tip for surviving a long flight is to get wine drunk right after dinner, and then you sleep for most of the flight. That is usually my plan. Every now and then, I might read a Kindle book, but that's usually my plan. Is just to be wine drunk and go to sleep, and it it typically works. Typically works. Um, my my compression socks are not cute, but I got multiple pair, and so those are my socks when I travel. Yeah. Um, Grits still off your need to have list. I don't eat grits, so I never get caught in the grit hysteria. That is not something I need. I didn't eat those before. I don't eat them now. Um, yeah, that's really, like I said, I get um, a 3 pack of a certain toothpaste. I do buy, like when I was in Houston to vote, on my way back to the airport, I stopped at a Target because I needed to get my 2025 planner. The planners here are as, or maybe even more expensive than the planners in the US, and they are not nearly as cute. So if I want a cute planner, I get that from the US. There's several fun things I pick up at Trader Joe's, but outside of that, I can't think of anything that I get on a regular basis, or I'm like, oh, who's coming from the States? Can you bring me this? Oh, okay, I lied, because Ivana, my roommate, my business partner, the other half of Reclaim the Retreat, she was out of town and she picked up brown sugar. That's the other thing that I cannot get here. And I know people are like, oh, you can just make brown sugar. I can't get molasses here either. So um, if I want regular brown sugar, I get that from the US. Chocolate chips, because generally they are cheaper there. We can get them here, but we will pay $1 million for chocolate chips. And I try not to do that. So yeah. Um, do you eat at popular street food? I figure if it's a busy time, there's more turnover of food. Um, I have never gotten, knock on wood, I've never gotten sick eating street food. The 2 times I have ever gotten sick, one was in Seoul, South Korea. I was eating at a restaurant, I think that was owned by a foreigner, but they serve like American food, and the other was in Marrakesh, Morocco, at an ice cream place. Those are the only 2 places I've ever gotten sick with food. Um, I think I have fewer hangups about eating street food after living in China for a year and a half, and where I saw some really unsanitary practices. Um, and if there's one thing about Mexican, they are not, they're handling food in such a way, they're not trying to get you sick, because word gets out that people getting sick at their stand, they're going to lose business. So it's fairly easy as long as you stick to a place that has a consistent line. A friend of mine told me, watch where the cops eat. And that's where you go eat, because one, it's good, and two, it's cheap. So that's not something I haven't had a problem with. And yes, I eat on the street. That sounds horrible. I eat at the tianguis, the like weekly market. The ladies know my order. When Ivana goes and I don't come, they ask about like, where's your friend? So yeah, I eat on the street. That's not a problem. Can you open a bank account without residency? Probably not. Uh, the letter of law says that you can't, but the letter of the law is not always followed here. But it is typically very difficult to open a bank account here without residency. And if you think about fiscal policy and anti-money laundering policies, you would be a little bit suspicious of someone who has no residency, does not live in that country, wanting to open a bank account there. Because you're like, what are you doing with that? And the reality is, most Mexicans don't have bank accounts. The vast majority of the population here is unbanked. So there isn't anything you necessarily need a Mexican bank account for. I have one, but I don't use it very often, honestly. So yeah. What has been the best advice that you've received since you left that you wish you knew before leaving? Oh, Janella. I don't know. I the thing that's coming to mind, so I'll go with this. It wasn't specifically advice given to me, but Stephanie Perry, I learned from her that, you can take a gap here when you're 42. You don't have to be 19. I wish I had known that before, because who knows, I may have done it sooner than I did. Trying to think. What advice did somebody give me? Oftentimes, I find myself in situations where I wish somebody would have told me something after I've had to learn something the hard way. Nothing is coming to mind. Nothing else. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. What other question we have? In China, where you became the picky girl with food. Oh no, I've been this way my whole life, almost 50 years. No, no, no. I have been a picky eater. I have not eaten fruits and vegetables for the vast majority of my life. Um, there was a story my mother used to tell all the time. Apparently, at like a nursery school I went to, some people were doing an experiment like this. Now that I think about it, this sounds horrible. Like they let these people come in and experiment on us as small children. I might have been like 2 or 3. And basically, they blindfolded the kids and like put a piece of apple in their mouth and tried different things. And like the reaction, and my mother used to tell the story about how when they put it in my mouth, I spit it out and then wiped off my mouth on my clothes. So no, I've been like this my whole life. China presented some difficulties culturally around food, and then logistically around food. Particularly, probably the biggest issue I noticed is that is not a culture where you question the food that has been placed in front of you. So like, it's like, here's a plate, eat. And instead of just going through the line and taking what they're giving me at the lunch line, here I am asking questions like, well, what's in it? Can I get it without that? What kind of meat is that? Often that question threw them off all the time. It'd be like, meat. Well, what kind? Because I don't eat all parts of animals. I don't eat inside meat, like arms, legs, ribs, back, fine. But I'm not eating spleen or stomach or tongue, lingua. I'm not eating that. So being there, it was difficult, and I ended up having to eat a whole lot more like foreign fast food than I normally would, simply because I knew what they were giving me, and I had some sense of like quality control, like because I knew a company like McDonald's, their food is coming from a particular supplier. So there's very little space for the Chinese people in the kitchen to like wing it, because I didn't want nobody winging it with my food, if you know what I mean. So yeah. Um, how do you obtain cash in Mexico? Are there a lot of US banks where you can withdraw? Nope. You take your US bank ATM card and you go to the ATM, and you withdraw pesos. The time when you would carry physical cash with you to go to like a money exchange desk, that's pretty over most places. Um, Now you use your ATM card. Now, of course, before you're going to a place, it's a good idea, one, to tell the bank you're going, and two, verify that your card will work on the network in those countries. I used to have a really small regional bank, and my ATM card would not work in China. So while I was in China, I had to use my Fidelity ATM card. But yeah, uh, it always seems odd when somebody posts in the group about, like, oh, I've got dollars that I need to exchange. Because I've, oh gosh, the last time I did that in this country was when I came in 2017. I came for a couple of days. I'm not sure what I was thinking, but I showed up with no debit card. I had a little bit of cash because I was between trips. I'd come from Europe, gone, picked up a bag, came here, realized I had credit cards, but I did not have ATM cards. And so I had to find a place to exchange that cash. But we don't really do that anymore. That's not the best way to go about things. Um, if you were to move to another city in Mexico, where would it be? I know that CDMX is unmatched, but I just wondered. Um, I have been asked this question before, and it's kind of like the answer is still sort of, I don't know, man. Um, I mean, I guess if, let's say, the water situation deteriorates further here, where would I go? Monterey might be interesting, but it's way too hot for me. So it would have to be, from a climatic point of view, it would have to be someplace in the Central Highlands. So Guanajuato, Querétaro, um, maybe Puebla, but I wouldn't be happy about it. It would be a choice out of necessity, not because that's what I would want to do. Janella, you should know the answer to this is absolutely not. Y'all, this part of my life is about easy things and not working and not having to think. And trading options sounds like so much work. And I am not interested in doing any work. Nothing that seems hard. Okay, one more question. Uh, is there any other country or city that you would like to live in for a year or more, or would just like to vacation in other countries? Interesting that you asked this question because I have been contemplating my desire to have residency in another country and whether or not that's still a thing. I did a video some months ago where I was like, maybe not, because my biggest issue when you get residency in a country, you're either going to pay with your money, and that's a golden visa. You can come in and out whenever you want. You don't have to be there a lot, but that's because you've invested some way, shape, or form a big chunk of money in that country. If you're not paying with your money, you got to pay with your time. So, like Portugal, for instance, they don't have their golden visa anymore. But if you went that route, you didn't need to physically be in Portugal, but something like a day or two a year. But the D7 visa, you need to be there at least 6 months a year in order to qualify for residency. Out of the 5 years, I think you can only be gone like a total of 10 months or something. And I don't like that. I don't like somebody telling me where I have to be. I don't like that. So the reality is that makes it very difficult for me to find another country to live in, because really where I want to live, Mexico City. So I do think that I am going to spend some time in Italy. At one point, I thought I might split my time between Mexico and Italy. But the more research I do, the more work it sounds like it is to get residency in Italy. And I just finished telling y'all, I don't want to do a whole bunch of work. So because I have a US passport, I can be in Italy 3 months out of every 180 days. And that's probably more than enough time. I'm not even sure I need 3 months. So also I don't believe in having a bucket lists. I just, no. But I don't even have like a list of places I want to go. I think I've made a point to get to all of the places that I would be sad if I never got to go there. So there's not a place that I'm like, oh yeah, I really want to go there. I really want to spend some time there that I haven't already been to. That doesn't mean that I won't travel there. It's just there's no place that I'm thinking like, oh, spending a year there would be great. Because right now, anytime I think about spending time somewhere, that's time I'm not here in Mexico. So that is a very long, drawn out answer to your question. But I will probably can always be based here and may spend a month here or there in a couple of other places that I really like. But Mexico City is home. And I am not inclined to like bop around. I'm not built for that. I have a guest coming on the channel, I think at the beginning of next month, who is a reformed, a retired digital nomad. The idea of having to pack my stuff up and move to a new place, that sounds horrible. I don't want to do that. I don't. So that's not in the cards for me. And really, there's not a country that offers, like when I think about the things that I feel like Mexico might lack, a country that might have those things has way too many like things I don't want to deal with going on there, that it then puts them off the table. So yeah, I'm just gonna be hanging out here in the center of Latin America. Oops, we just answered that question. All right, so I don't know, what else do y'all want to talk about? Tip for moving to Mexico: have comfortable tennis shoes. You will walk a lot. Yeah, if you're doing it right, you will walk a lot. Absolutely. What else y'all want to talk about? I'm just going back through here to see if I missed any questions. I don't think I did. Okay. Any sewing retreats coming up? Yes. In just a few months, in March, I will be turning 50. And so I've been going to this retreat, whether I was turning 50 or not, but I am going to the sorority retreat again this year in March. And as of right now, I have 2 sewing retreats lined up for 2025, as of now. That could change. I could add more. And then the second one, I am going to a lingerie sewing retreat in Scotland next fall. So I had I had such a good time at the sorority retreat. I didn't go in 2024. I went, I guess, 2023 as such a good time. I had more fun at that. I enjoyed that far more than I enjoyed Frocktails. In June, I went to Frocktails in Chicago. And if you're like, what is Frocktails? It is a cocktail party where you sew your frock that you're wearing and you get to hang out with a bunch of people who sew. I enjoyed the sorority retreat far more. So when they put out the dates for this year, I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be there. And so that's one of my mini birthday gifts to myself, because you only turn 50 once, and it's kind of a big deal. Do I drink coffee? Absolutely not. I can't understand why y'all drink coffee. That stuff tastes horrible. I drink hot chocolate, I drink water, I drink wine and mezcal and rum. But no, not coffee. I don't even like food products that I can taste the coffee. Um, not good. Not good. What am I thinking about doing for my birthday? I want to do all the things. But the big thing for me in that year is I want to hang out with the people who are important to me. So everything that I'm doing for my birthday, including a solo trip I'm going to take for my birthday because I'm important to me and I want to hang out with me. That's kind of the theme. I am going to take a trip with my kids and my grandkids. That was something I wanted to do when I turned 45. But if y'all remember what March of 2020 looks like, and considering that I was living in China at the time, needless to say, that did not happen. And so this will be kind of our first family trip. Not true. It'll be our first family trip in a really long time. Because a lot of the people who will be on this trip didn't exist the last time we went somewhere. So yeah, I think that's what I'm gonna be doing. The first part of the year is I had these visions of like celebrating the whole year, although I don't have any real plans for January and February yet. So I don't know, I guess I need to work on that and have something to do. When is the next Reclaim the Retreat? 2025. That's what we know. It's in 2025. Actually, maybe in a few weeks we'll be ready to announce dates, but right now, best I can tell you is 2025. Excuse me. Yes, my birthday is in March. I am an Aries. Although somebody told me I don't have Aries energy, I have Aquarius. I don't really fully know what that means, but okay, we'll just go with it. We'll just go with it. I'm trying to think. Is there anything else I needed to update y'all on? Okay. Where do we go to make sure we don't miss the 2025 retreat announcements? Yes, there is a newsletter link. I I know where that is. Give me a second, give me a second, give me a second. It is in the description. But here it is as well. This is where you need to go. I'll drop that here. If you don't want to miss out, because let me tell you this. I can also tell you, yes, the retreats will be in 2025. I can also tell you there will be fewer spots. So if you saw, because you know, Reclaim the Retreat as an Instagram, you saw the posts we made from Oaxaca, you saw the posts we made from El Salvador, and you're like, I want to be there. You want to be on the mailing list. bit.ly/pickygirl-list. That link is in the description of this video. I'm looking forward to our retreats. I'm looking forward to the retreats that I will be going on. It's going 2025. I'm gonna have some fun. I'm gonna have some fun in 2025. Not to say that I didn't have fun in 2024. Actually, I think in the first half of the year, I was probably having too much. Y'all remember I did a video about how I didn't want to travel anymore, and being basically home since early June through, I'm going somewhere for Christmas. So that's, first of all, when's the last time I've been in one place for nearly 6 months? Doesn't really happen, but it was great. It was great. I think I am going to do some no spin challenges. Again, I love this, Jess, that you're doing the no spin challenge for the entire 2025. I think that's great. I am in the middle of a no spin challenge right now. If you happen to follow me on Instagram, you might know that I am doing the whole 30-yard challenge. I am not allowed to buy any new fabric until I have sewn up 30 yards of the fabric that I own. And I know you're thinking, wow, 30 yards of fabric, that's a lot. How do you even have more than 30 yards? That's an excellent question. How do I have more than 30 yards? Right now, I have sewn, I'm checking my spreadsheet, I have sewn up 13.6 yards of fabric. And I probably would have been done, except I cut out several projects that needed interfacing, like to make like the collar stiff, and I didn't have any, and I can't buy any here in Mexico City, so that's put me on hold. But that also means there have been several fabric sales that have come in my inbox that I have not been able to take advantage of. So I can't no spend, because when once I sew through this 30 yards, I have some things to make that I need to buy fabric for. Okay. Yes. Last month. Was it last month? Yes, last month. I presented at Access Summit. And if you have the All Access Pass, there are some workshops. I believe there are 3 workshops that All Access Pass holders get access to. And my workshop, which is going to be all about money, will be November 8th at 8 p.m. Eastern. If you just had the regular ticket for Exodus Summit, and you're like, oh, I didn't know there were going to be these extra workshops, you can still upgrade that ticket as far as I know. So, wouldn't want to miss that. If you bought the all access ticket and you forgot that you had access to those, you definitely want to be there so that you can get all of the goodness. I know Mine is on Money. I know Libria is doing a workshop on um, remote work. And I think there's another one that has something to do with children. And because I am not currently responsible for any children, I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to that. So yeah, there's that. But yeah, no, 2024, I'm thinking about all the travel I did between January and June. It has been so great to be home and just not do anything until I started this Spanish class 2 weeks ago. And now it's like I have a full-time job. And I just told y'all, I don't want to work like that. So I'll probably do one more round of the intensive Spanish, but I may have to do that online because my main mode of public transportation is probably going to be not under construction, renovated, which will make it very difficult for me to get down to the campus. And I don't like difficult things. So I'll probably do that online. So, all right. I hope spending the last hour or so with me has been the respite, the break you needed. Is there anything else that y'all want to chat about? Because we've talked about my 2025 travel plan. I'm trying to think what else. I do not plan to engage. I've tried my hardest to stay off of social media and what have you. And, I'll just wake up tomorrow and find out whatever I need to find out then. So y'all take it easy. Take care of yourself. Do not engage with people or with content that makes you feel bad, makes you feel anxious. Protect, protect yourself and protect your peace. And I will talk to y'all. When am I gonna talk to y'all again? I'm looking at my calendar. I'll talk to y'all again real soon, real soon. All right, y'all. Good night.